I was standing at the kitchen window, sipping my morning coffee when I saw it again, water gushing from my backyard spigot, snaking its way across the lawn through my hose and straight into someone else's pool. Specifically, Delia's. The hose slithered like a stolen serpent across the grass, clearly having been dragged there without my consent. And as if that wasn't enough, her damn drone hovered just above the fence line, filming me like I was the criminal in all of this. She reclined poolside with a margarita, acting like royalty in a kingdom built on borrowed water. But I smiled, because I had a plan. And it involved a septic hose. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, what? How could that even work legally? And how on earth did she not notice? Believe me, those same questions ran through my head the first time she trespassed into my yard and dragged my hose over like it was some communal utility. I thought maybe a kid had done it. Maybe a confused gardener. I even gave her the benefit of the doubt. That was mistake number one. Delia didn't make mistakes. She created patterns. Repetitive, entitled, HOA-approved patterns. I moved into the neighborhood about 6 months ago. We had a corner lot, big oak trees, a fenced yard, and a decent school district. She'd grown up in a city and always dreamed of having a backyard big enough for a hammock and a little garden. For me, it was a downgrade. I'd been living on a 10-acre ranch for years, but when Emily got sick, we needed to be closer to a hospital. So I traded acres for sidewalks. Figured it was a fair trade. And boy, did I get a neighbor. Delia introduced herself the same day the moving truck arrived. She came over carrying a plate of what I think were oatmeal cookies dry enough to sandwood and handed me a laminated copy of the HOA rules before she even said her name. Told me she was the president of the HOA, welcomed us to the most well-regulated neighborhood in the state, and made an odd comment about how she hoped we were the outdoor tidy type. I hadn't even unpacked the grill. Still, I played nice at first. I trimmed the lawn, kept the trash bins hidden behind the fence, didn't complain when she parked her Lexus half across my driveway. I figured if I gave her nothing to complain about, she'd leave me alone. Wrong again. Delia didn't want neighbors. She wanted subjects. It started with her dog, a yappy little furball named Duchess who apparently thought my lawn was its personal bathroom. Every morning I'd find little gifts on my walkway. Then came the citations. First for excessive grass height, and I kid you not, it was 1 inch over the HOA limit. Then for unauthorized fence paint color, because my shade of brown wasn't the approved brown. Then for illegal irrigation equipment, which was literally just my sprinkler. I played by the rules. I documented everything. Filed appeals. Stayed patient. Until I saw my hose stretched across the yard, disappearing into her locked backyard like a thief in the night. That's when I realized I wasn't just dealing with someone annoying. I was dealing with someone bold. Audaciously bold. I walked over, hose in hand, and knocked on her door. She answered wearing a silk robe, holding a glass of wine like she just stepped off a magazine cover. When I asked her why my hose was filling up her pool, she blinked like I'd asked her what year it was. Oh, that? My nephew must have done it. Silly boy. I'll talk to him. Her nephew lives in Portland. He's 37. I let it go. Big mistake. The next time, she didn't even try to hide it. I caught her on my security camera 2:14 in the morning, shuffling into my yard in bunny slippers, unspooling my hose like she was prepping to put out a fire. The very next day, I bought a hose lock. She cut it. Clean. At that point, it wasn't just water theft. It was a power move. She wanted to see how far she could push. And push she did. The drone came next. Small, black, obnoxious. It hovered over my yard like an insect with a camera. I waved it at the first time. Flipped it off the second. On the third day, I aimed a garden hose straight into the sky and blasted it out of the air. It crash-landed in my tomato bed with a satisfying crunch. 2 hours later, I got a notice taped to my door accusing me of aerial harassment and property destruction. She'd called the cops. They came by, took one look at my footage, and practically rolled their eyes out of their heads. But still, she didn't stop. If anything, she escalated. She started hosting weekly pool parties. Loud music, blaring speakers, tiki torches, the works. Meanwhile, my water meter spun like a slot machine. I calculated she was siphoning about 3,000 gallons a week from my spigot. 3,000 gallons. So I called my friend Hank. Hank's a plumber. Owed me a favor after I pulled his ATV out of a gully last year. He's got a twisted sense of humor and an affinity for creative plumbing solutions. We spent the whole afternoon building a perfectly average-looking green garden hose, same brand and length. Only this one wasn't connected to my water line. It was connected to the septic cleanout. We installed a valve, a pressure booster, and did a little midnight test run. Worked like a charm. All I needed was the right moment, and it came on a Saturday. The big day, the HOA summer social. Hosted at Delia's. Cool off and connect with neighbors, the flyer said. Poolside barbecue. Community gathering. Swimsuits optional. She'd been prepping all week. New flamingos. Fresh paint on the fence. Blasted her leaf blower at 6 a.m. every day. She even cut through a second hose lock the Thursday before the event. Did it in broad daylight, while on a phone call like it was her constitutional right. That morning, I sat inside sipping iced coffee, watching as the neighborhood migrated to her yard like moths to chlorine. Kids in floaties, folding chairs, red Solo cups. Delia stood poolside like Cleopatra in a sun hat, gesturing grandly as she greeted her loyal subjects. And there it was. My hose. Still hooked up. Still running. Looping through a pink plastic flamingo like it was part of the decor. The septic rig was ready. I stepped outside, calm and collected, walking the path toward the valve. That's when I noticed it. Another drone. Not hers, this one was sleek, quiet, deliberate. It hovered just behind her tool shed, zooming in. It recorded the hose, the party, the whole setup. And standing near the back fence, holding the remote? Her husband. Curtis. I nearly laughed. The man looked like he hadn't smiled in a decade, and now here he was, covertly filming his wife's suburban downfall. He caught my eye and gave the smallest nod. That was all I needed. I turned the valve. 10 seconds later, screams erupted from the pool. A kid near the deep end yelled, followed by gasps, and then the sound of retching. Delia, who'd been standing next to the skimmer, got blasted square in the side by a brown geyser of unspeakable contents. The pool turned from sparkling blue to swamp muck in under a minute. People screamed. Some gagged. Lawn chairs tipped over. A beach ball floated into the mess like it had accepted its fate. Delia shrieked something about sabotage. About terrorism. About chemical warfare. I watched it all unfold from behind my fence, sipping the last of my coffee, silent and satisfied. Then Curtis's drone turned toward me, hovered for a second, then zipped back over the yard to capture more chaos. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was evidence. The aftermath was apocalyptic. The water was brown. The edges of the pool looked like a cake frosted with sewage. People ran like it was Chernobyl. Kids slipped. Adults cursed. The flamingos floated belly up like casualties of war. And Delia? She stood in the middle of it all, screaming. She pounded on my gate 10 minutes later, shrieking through the slats. You did this. I waited a beat, then opened the gate just a crack. Did what? You hooked up your hose to sewage. That's sewage, isn't it? That hose? The one you trespassed to take. Again? She sputtered. I'm calling the police. You should, I said. They'll want to hear about the trespassing, the vandalized locks, the stolen utilities. Might want to call the county health department too. She blinked, stunned, then slipped on her patio as she stomped away. I didn't even need to smile. The universe did it for me. Within the hour, 2 police cruisers rolled up. I met them at my door with video footage queued up on my tablet, a timeline, and a pot of fresh coffee. They watched the clips. They took notes. Over the fence, I heard Delia arguing, trying to spin it like she had verbal permission. Nope. I explained the septic rig. Told them it had been disconnected, sitting there, waiting for disposal. She trespassed and used an unapproved line. Not my problem. The cops didn't press. They saw the game. They left with the footage and told me to keep my gates locked. I told them next time I might electrify them. They laughed. Delia? Not so much. By the next day, the story had hit the neighborhood Facebook group. Drone footage. Screenshots. Comments from half the block. Turns out, I wasn't her only victim, just the only one who fought back. And then the FAA got involved. Apparently, Delia had been flying her drone illegally. No license. No flight logs. No compliance. A few days later, I got an envelope. No return address. Inside? Screenshots. Videos. Her drone hovering over bedrooms. Fenced yards. A note inside read, "I've got more." She started a war over water. Now she was drowning in it.